When Yumi was 6 years old, she painted a monster that had been haunting her dreams. Since then, every night she dreamed of new monsters, and every morning she painted them, banishing them from her dreams forever. But one day the line between her dreams and reality began to blur. The monsters started creeping into her waking life, and she had to find out why before they consumed her entirely. Yumi always dreamed of being an artist. From the time she could hold a crayon, she drew fantastical creatures scribbling away in notebooks, on walls, anywhere she could find a surface. But when Yumi turned 6, her drawings took a darker turn. Nightmares plagued her sleep, and she began painting those too. At first, her parents thought it was just a phase. They encouraged her artistic expression, though they did insist she paint on paper instead of the walls. But when Yumi's paintings were still just as gruesome, they sent her to see a child psychologist. The doctor was baffled by Yumi's artwork, but he diagnosed her with a vivid imagination and prescribed therapy sessions to help her work through her fears. But the only thing Yumi feared was the monsters under her bed or in her closet. She told her therapist about them, and the next morning she drew them. After that, her nightmares stopped. The doctor didn't know how or why, but Yumi found out. The monster in her dreams was the one she had painted. Now, whenever she dreamed of a new monster, she would draw it first thing in the morning. And each time she did, the creature from her dream seemed to vanish, never to return. It was like painting a monster banished it from her dreams forever. When Yumi was 12, her art teacher saw some of her paintings and encouraged her to enter an art contest. Not wanting her mother to find out, Yumi hid her application. When her piece was selected as the winner, she knew she couldn't keep it a secret anymore. She showed her parents the award and confessed she had entered the contest without their permission. Of course, they were furious, but they had to admit Yumi's talent was undeniable. So they drove her to the gallery where her painting was displayed, though her mom still scolded her the whole way there. It was the first time Yumi had shown her work to anyone outside of her family, and she was terrified. But everyone loved her painting, even though they couldn't understand why a young girl would paint something so disturbing. In the end, the owner of the gallery bought the painting, and Yumi won a scholarship to study abroad. Finally, her passion for art was paying off, and it seemed her nightmares were finally over. But one night, she had the same nightmare she had when she was 6. The monster slithered toward her, its teeth bared in a snarl. Then it leaped out of the closet and onto her bed. Then it opened its mouth to devour her whole. Yumi woke up screaming, then sat up in bed. Panting, she looked around the room, half expecting to see the monster standing over her, but it was nowhere to be seen. Shaking, she got out of bed and went to her art supplies. Normally, this was the part where she would draw the monster, banish it from her dreams forever. But this time she didn't. She wanted to go back to sleep, but the longer she lay there, the more she felt the monster's presence growing stronger. Eventually, she got out of bed again and walked to her window. Looking out at the city, she decided she needed some fresh air. So she put on some clothes, grabbed her paint, and headed out. As she walked, she noticed a dark alleyway. The buildings on either side were tall and imposing, making the narrow space feel like a cavern. And as she stood there, the walls seemed to close in around her. It was just like the monster had blocked the exit in her dream. Panic started to rise inside her. She had to get out of there. She started running, stumbling over trash cans and weaving between parked cars. She didn't dare look back, afraid that the monster was gaining on her. Finally, she burst out of the alley and into the street, gasping for breath. She leaned against a wall, trying to steady herself. Had the monster followed her? She turned slowly and saw a man standing in the alleyway. He smiled at her and motioned for her to come closer. Yumi refused, backing away. But the man kept coming forward, beckoning with a finger. He reached out, his hand long and skeletal. and Yumi screamed. She turned and ran again. She didn't stop until she reached her apartment building. Safe inside her room, Yumi poured everything she felt onto the canvas. When she finished, she stared at the painting. It was the most realistic thing she had ever drawn. And she knew what she had to do. She took a deep breath, then picked up a knife and slashed the canvas, tearing the monster in two. As she did, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. Maybe now she could finally sleep. In the morning, Yumi woke up feeling refreshed. Finally, she could start working on a new painting. She went to her art supplies and pulled out a blank canvas. But as she stood there, staring at it, she couldn't think of anything to paint. So she went to the window and looked out at the city. That's when she noticed people walking toward a nearby park, and she remembered she hadn't eaten yet. So she decided to go with them. As she approached the park, she heard children laughing and playing. She watched as they ran around, chasing each other. And suddenly, Yumi felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned and saw the man from the alley. He gestured for her to follow him deeper into the park. Though Yumi hesitated, she knew she shouldn't go with him. She tried to walk away, but he kept getting in her path, blocking her way. His eyes glowed an eerie green in the sunlight. And when he leaned in, she could smell decay on his breath. Yumi turned and ran. This time, she didn't bother hiding. She ran through the park, not caring who she ran past. Finally, she reached the road and kept going until she saw a familiar building. She had run all the way home. But when she opened her front door, she gasped. The man was standing in her living room. How had he gotten in? Was he the monster from her dream? Before she could respond, he lunged. Yumi awoke with a jolt, sitting upright in bed. Her heart was pounding in her chest. Had it been a dream? She looked down and saw a paintbrush in her hand. It wasn't hers. The bristles were stiff and coarse. It wasn't the kind of brush she would use for her paintings. Suddenly, she remembered why. This was the brush from the painting she had torn. She had ripped the monster in two, but she had saved herself. Or had she? She rushed to her bathroom and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Was she breathing hard? Did she have a wild look in her eyes? Maybe the monster was already inside her. She splashed water on her face. Maybe if she acted normal, whatever was inside her would stay dormant. She had to try. She dressed quickly and headed out the door. As she walked, she tried to act natural, like nothing had happened. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she turned around, she expected to see the man from the alley. All day at school, Yumi worried about the monster. She couldn't focus on her studies. She doodled pictures of the monster instead, but none of them looked right. Something was wrong. She could feel it. After class, Yumi stayed late to clean up. As she swept the floor, she noticed a book on an art history shelf. She pulled it out and flipped through the pages until she came across a picture of a painting called The Scream. But this version wasn't like the original. Instead of a man, it was a girl, her features twisted in a silent scream. And beside her, there was a dark figure, reaching out to her. Yumi's blood ran cold. Could this be the monster? If she had painted it, would it become real? She rushed home, desperate to check her paintings. But when she searched, she couldn't find it. She tore through her artwork, ripping canvases and throwing paint at the wall until she found the one she was looking for. It was hidden behind a bookshelf. Yumi had forgotten she had painted it. It depicted the man from the alley reaching toward her, but there was something else in the painting, something she hadn't noticed before. There was a face in the darkness, a horrible, grotesque face. Could this be the true form of the monster? Had it been hiding in plain sight? As the sun set, Yumi knew what she had to do. She spent the whole night painting, not the monster, but a new painting, one of her fleeing from the monster. And when she was done, she ripped the canvas. With every tear, she felt the presence of the monster grow fainter. Then she slept. In the morning, she woke up and everything was different. The monster was gone. She could finally move on with her life. But as she picked up her paintbrush, she knew she would never forget what she had learned. Some nightmares are best left in our dreams. What will she paint next? Will the monster be back? Let us know your thoughts. And thanks for watching. See you next time.